I finally decided to post stories that concern my more unsavory family members. Namely, everyone on my mother's side. This story is one of the times that my cousin attempted to harm me or one of my siblings. My cousin, Mary, had always been an attention-seeking, loud-mouthed little girl. She was blonde, mischievous, and full of energy. Being an equally loud-mouthed, attention-seeking, half-white brunette, we butted heads a lot. This was especially true since, as a small child, I used to think that she was treated better than the rest of us grandkids because her parents were divorced and her father, or uncle, lived with the grandparents still. Looking back on it, it certainly excuses some of her behavior and explains it. But not everything. My family often let us kids spend a month out of the summer with our grandparents. We called it Camp Nana, and we would go shopping, bake cookies, all the good stuff. But those times weren't without their dark side. Mary and I argued a lot. On the last day of our vacation, things went overboard. My grandparents had a hot tub in the back, and they let us play in it by ourselves while we waited for my mom to come pick her kids up. My cousin was going to be staying for an extra couple of days. I can remember my cousin trying to rub it in my face, but I was ignoring her at that point, which only made her angrier. I don't remember what happened next, but my mom told me the rest of the story. Apparently, she arrived early to pick us up and went out to the backyard where the hot tub was. She found Mary, holding me under the water, and flipped. My mom shoved Mary away and pulled me out of the water. I wasn't responsive, so she gave me mouth to mouth. I coughed up water and came back, shaken but alive. Unfortunately, Mary and my uncle managed to convince my mom that we were just playing a game and that Mary hadn't meant to hold me under like that. So, next year, we went back and my mom didn't even take me to the doctors. I guess she didn't want to think that things could have gone so wrong either. This happened a couple years after the hot tub incident. It was my little sister's first time staying at Camp Nana, as previous years she was still just a baby. Now that she had reached toddler age, my parents felt that, if I kept an eye on her, she could spend a week or two with us. For reference, I believe I was around 11. My brother Dan was 9. Mary was 8, and Lynette was 4. During our stay, there was an arcade and play place my uncle used to take us to. Think Chuck E. Cheese, without the eerie animatronics or cold pizza. One side was the arcade, bathrooms, and prize counter. The other had the play structure, which was mostly blue. My little sister loves the color blue, so obviously she wanted to spend the whole trip over there. I was mildly annoyed since I was the one to watch my sister. My brother was off in the arcade section. Our uncle had disappeared already, which I later found out he disappeared to the alley next to the play place, which was a common spot to score drugs, which is why he brought us there. And I was not comfortable leaving my cousin alone with Lynette. Why? Because Mary hated Lynette. It was a simple jealousy that was turning into hate. Lynette was younger, the real baby of the family, and so she was taking attention away from Mary. Mary even lost some of the privileges she got, being the child of a messy divorce, because then it wouldn't be fair to Lynette, or it would wake Lynette up. She was a lot more argumentative and, well, bitchier than usual because of this. It got on my brother and my nerves, and to top it all off, I was wary that Mary might try to pull some sort of stunt while we were out playing because of what she had done to me earlier. Earlier in the day, we were in my grandparents' basement playing dress-up. My mother had left a lot of old prom dresses down there, and our Nana was a bit of a seamstress, so we were having a lot of fun. I see Mary go off into the side room of the basement. It's also the laundry room, and I think that she wants privacy to change. I'm sitting on the steps with my grandmother, watching Lynette run around. Nana goes upstairs to get water, and Mary comes back into the room. I notice she hasn't changed, and feel kind of weirded out, especially since she's holding something very tightly in one of her hands. Mary then proceeds to throw Tide in my little sister's face. Lynette screams, and thankfully ducks, which keeps the Tide off of her. Me? I'm already screaming at Mary, demanding to know what the fuck she was doing. First time I ever cursed, it sounded odd even in my ears. Nana came back down. I got in trouble for cursing, and Mary got off free because my sister wouldn't say she did anything. I barely got to go to the arcade with them because of that. At the arcade, things went downhill fast. Mary convinced Lynette that it would be fun to play a game where they ran away from me and hid. I had told Lynn that she needed to stay where I could see her, so it pissed me off that she would listen to Mary over me. The two kept going in and out of the play structure. I couldn't keep an eye on them, and I couldn't keep up since I was taller and had trouble climbing quickly through the tubes and such. For 2 rounds, I would find Mary alone without Lynn and proceed to crawl and climb about calling for her. I found her abandoned in a tube somewhere, confused and displeased that I had come to play with her and not her cousin. Then Mary would swoop in, and off they would go. I climbed outside the play structure after failing to find them in it a 3rd time. I saw Mary coming back into the play area from the arcade. Rushing over to her, I asked where Lynn was. Mary giggled. I don't know. Whatever. I pushed past her and began to search the arcade area too. I found Dan and asked if he had seen Lynn and Mary walking around. He barely took his eyes off his game and said no. Our uncle was nowhere to be found still. I did another sweep of both the play area, arcade, and women's bathroom. No Lynn. Panic set in, and I had one of the employees page my sister. Still nothing. An employee was sent to look for Lynn. Mary came over and asked what was going on. I saw red. I grabbed her and shook her, demanding to know what she did with Lynn. I pushed her against the wall, intending to beat the shit out of her. Another employee had to pull me off. The sound of crying made me look over. Lynn was with another customer who said he had found her in the men's bathroom, sitting in the corner, crying. Lynn was given one of those huge lollipops for free to help her get over the ordeal. We were then asked to wait in the sitting area until they found our parents. Our uncle stumbled in half an hour later, probably already high. We were promptly kicked out. Apparently, security sucks, because I went to that exact arcade one last time a year later. My brother bought me a purple ninja sword with his tickets as an apology for not taking me seriously. We took turns keeping Lynn away from Mary for the rest of our trip. Unfortunately, Mary was still not punished because she spun the story that they were, again, just playing a game. Nana didn't want any fights, and our uncle was obviously going to take his kid's side. When I got home, I told my mom, who decided she wasn't going to let Lynn stay at Camp Nana if Mary was around. can still picture her face as she said, horrified, "I bet Mary would have loved if something bad happened to Lynn." Thankfully, the next year would be our last, and probably the worst. This takes place during the winter break when I was around 11 or so. In all honesty, I've tried not to think about these things for so long that my memory of when, age-wise anyway, I remember the events pretty clearly, it happened is a little fuzzy. My school, which was run by a nunnery, had oddly long holidays, so us kids got an entire month off of school for Christmas break, beginning of December to early January. So, the week after Christmas, before we went back to school, my mom asked me if I wanted to spend some time up at Nana and Papa's. It would be just me since she didn't want Lynn spending time with them because Mary was going to be there and Dan, my younger brother, had football camp so he couldn't go. It didn't bother me because I was excited to hang out with my grandparents, even if Mary was going to be there. I wasn't scared of Mary and was sure that I could take her because I'd just gotten my orange belt in Taekwondo. The naivety of youth, I guess. We packed a bag and Nana and Papa picked me up in Centralia so we could drive to their home in Tacoma. Things were kind of off from the start. My grandparents were acting weird, and Mary was more possessive of her toys and flaunted them more than I remembered. There was also my uncle. My uncle, Rob, was in his 30s at the time, and still lived with his parents. I knew that he regularly smoked, and later learned that he regularly used other, harder drugs, which eventually cost him his job and visitation rights to Mary. I knew he was a very negative person who enjoyed getting his kicks out of teasing and belittling those around him, especially physically. But I'd never been so frightened of a person as I was during that trip. I tried to shrug off his sour attitude and wanted to do something fun and enjoy my time with my grandparents, free of siblings. I could pretty much ignore Mary, for the most part. But things went downhill very quickly. The second night I was there, Mary saw me reading manga in the living room and wanted to look at it. I was on a Sailor Moon kick at the time, and I'm sure everyone knows that in the manga, during their transformations, you can see the silhouette of the girls, so they look naked. Mary read one of the books and said that it was dumb. I was annoyed, but again shrugged it off. Mary left the room. Not 2 minutes later, my uncle comes storming in. He grabbed me by my arms and hauled me up off the couch and started shaking me. "What the hell do you think you're doing showing my daughter porn?" I dropped the book in fright, stammering that it wasn't porn at all. It was a comic about superheroes, but they were girls. Rob dropped me and snatched up the book. He shook it in my face, almost hitting me on the nose. "If I ever see you showing her this trash again, I'll beat the shit out of you!" And just like that, he stormed off, leaving me speechless. I tried to bring it up with Nana, but she shut me down quickly, not wanting to talk about it. She said Uncle Rob was under a lot of stress at work, that he didn't mean it. I tried to confront Mary about it, but she said it was just a joke, that I shouldn't make a big deal out of it. Besides, I know where my dad keeps his real porn magazines. Your dumb comic was boring. I was so frustrated, I locked myself in a room. A spare cot placed in the office and crafts room for the rest of the night. By the time morning came, I was ready to forgive and forget. But Rob was even nastier than before. He forgot his keys to the house after coming back from work that afternoon and screamed at me to open the door. He started cursing at me when I didn't open it fast enough. Once he got inside, he repeatedly slammed the door in front of my face, yelling about, "How hard is it for you to open a fucking door, you stupid half-chink? I thought you guys were supposed to be smart." Once again, I tried to talk to my Nana about it, but instead of taking my side, she forced me to apologize to my uncle. She even stood behind me while I did it. Uncle Rob just laughed and said, "You should be sorry. You're so stupid." I was absolutely ready to go home, but I didn't want to call and make my parents drive 5 hours to pick me up so late in the afternoon. I decided I would ask permission to call them in the morning. We weren't allowed to answer the phone at all or open the door unless we knew who it was. I should have just made the phone call anyway, but I was raised learning that those who have authority over you are always right. You shouldn't question them. And in this instance, that authority was my grandparents and, unfortunately, my uncle. It's taken me a while to break that habit. Everything hit rock bottom when my grandparents announced that they were going out to dinner by themselves, and that Uncle Rob would watch Mary and I. I was upset, but didn't say anything. Mary seemed a little nervous too, but I figured she was worried I would try and do something to her because of the whole manga equals porn thing. I was wrong. Not long after they leave, Uncle Rob suggests that we go out for pizza and hit the arcade. I reluctantly agree. The arcade is kind of boring as it's a Friday night and there's a line for most of the games. I still managed to snag a cool prize with the tickets I did win. It was some sort of wooden puzzle, I think. Anyway, Mary and I get super bored and we try to find Uncle Rob to ask to go home. He's nowhere to be seen, and just like the last time, we don't have a phone number to call. We don't even know the number for my grandparents' house to call and ask them to pick us up, so we're resigned to waiting. Thankfully, Uncle Rob picks us up in around 10 minutes or so. It wasn't that long of a wait. However, when we pile into his truck, he's acting strange. He's jittery and it takes him a minute to start the car. I now realize that he was high. Rob's driving is erratic. He's swerving and speeding along the road. Cars are honking at us, and it's a miracle that we didn't get pulled over. Well, maybe not a miracle. My grandfather was in the police force, and he had a very high-up position. Anyway, I'm sitting in the passenger seat, clinging to the door handle for dear life. I can barely breathe. Mary is another story. She's screaming, begging for Rob to stop, that she's scared. Rob screams back, telling her to shut up. Mary starts crying. Rob starts laughing and whooping. Mary cries the whole way home. We get into the house and he staggers around, yelling and talking in half sentences. Heads over to the living room. Mary and I are lingering in the front room of the house. Rob looks over at me and asks if I'm scared. I say nothing and he just laughs. He heads over to the living room and collapses on the couch, turning on the TV. I take Mary's hand and take her quietly to our grandparents' bedroom. They have their own TV, so I turn it on. Mary is really shaken up and I feel pity for her. I quietly go to the bathroom and get her a glass of water. She thanks me and I tuck her into the bed so she can watch cartoons and relax. I sit on the floor, placing my body in front of the door. It just feels right. An instinct, I think. Mary falls asleep. It gets dark outside and I turn the TV down low so it doesn't wake her, but I leave it running so I'm not alone in the dark. All I can think is, where are Nana and Papa? Why aren't they back yet? A while later, I'm not sure how long it was, I hear the back door open and slam. Another period of silence and the back door opens and shuts again. I hear Rob shuffling around in the kitchen, then moving up to the living room. Suddenly, he shouts out, "Where are you?" I jerk upright against the door, feeling a jolt of fear go down my spine. Just from the way he's talking, it's not just angry. He sounds frenzied. I know something isn't right. Rob begins to storm through the house, going through the rooms. He's yelling for us. In a moment of panic, I grab the nightstand and drag it over to the bedroom door. I let its weight help me hold it shut. Rob is screaming now. Alice! Where are you, you little bitch? If you don't get your ass out here, I'm gonna call my friends. They'll teach you a lesson. He reaches out and starts pounding on the door, trying to force his way inside. I think the only reason he didn't manage it was because whatever he was tripping on affected him too strongly. His ranting and raving gets worse and worse. Suddenly, I can hear a car's headlights go down the road. I hear tires pull to a stop near the house and my grandparents' voices. They come into the house and Rob starts screaming at them too. There's the sound of scuffling, and then it's quiet. In the silence, I hear someone sniffling. Looking over, I see Mary's tear-stained face is reflecting the light from the still-playing TV. Go to sleep, Mary, I say quietly. Mary just sniffles again. I push the nightstand away from the door and slowly creep out into the hallway and down to the living room. Nana's standing there, looking ruffled. Uncle Rob and Papa are nowhere to be seen. I ask where they are and she turns around. What are you still doing up? Go back to bed. But go, now! I hurry back to the spare room that's my bedroom. The digital clock next to the computer reads 3 a.m. They had left us alone with my uncle starting at 5 p.m. I found out later that they'd been in a casino all night. The next morning, I demand to call my parents. Nana agrees. I think you should go home. Once we get home, I tell them everything. Everything after that is a blur. Both of my parents spent a long time on the phone. I remember my mom screaming at one point, telling them she never wants to hear from any of them again before slamming the phone down. I wasn't the only one to raise complaints. Mary spoke to her mother, who, in turn, pushed for Rob to lose his visitation rights. I'm not sure how it was managed, but he lost both his job and rights to see Mary. To my knowledge, he hasn't seen Mary since that winter. And neither have I. In person, at least. We spoke online and through email a few times, but we never reconnected. And neither of us mentioned that night ever again. It is one of the most frightening experiences of my life, and still haunts me to this day. Even though I did everything I thought I could, I still feel this horrible guilt and pain every time I think about it or any of my mother's family. I wish I could say that we actually managed to never hear from them again. Better yet, I wish that I could say they straightened up their act and we've come to an understanding. I can't. It may not be a scary story for you, but it was for me. I honestly don't know what could have happened if he managed to force his way into the room. Either way, I don't want to meet any of them ever again.